Have you ever had a coincidence that happened in your life and then later on look back and go, whoa, that wasn't a coincidence. God had his hand all over it. And trusting God and walking with God and being obedient in him. Well, we're going to hear a story today that's amazing. So hang on, sit tight, and get ready for this. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Bannockburn Stories. I have today with me Al Veach on the couch. Al, how are you?
Doing really well.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you for joining me. Thank you for hanging out and sharing your story today. Let's just go back and start with, where are you from? Where were you originally born and raised and all that?
From the metropolis of Meridian, Mississippi.
Meridian, Mississippi.
We're down to about 30,000 or so
okay.
population. It's east central Mississippi.
It's right on the coast, right on Gulf of Mexico?
It's right east central. It's
okay.
It's right there across the center of the state. You go due west, you hit Jackson, the capital.
Okay, so you're right there in the middle. Well, that's cool, Mississippi. Tell me a little bit about your childhood, like, as you kind of dive into your story. Let me know a little bit about, what'd you grow up in?
So I was the last of five.
Okay, five kids.
Yeah, all older sisters, 4 older sisters.
All right.
And so my house was a very high traffic house. My dad was a veterinarian. My mom ran a couple of businesses. Pet shop, and we started when I was a young kid, my dad started an ice cream store. He was named Al, and I was Little Al.
Okay.
And so the ice cream store's name was Little Al's, and I worked there, and it was cool.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah, it was about a 9, 10-year-old, something like that. So had a lot of fun there, but my dad was a very outgoing, gregarious type of guy. He passed away a few years ago, but growing up, he was a 5-year letterman and just had a lot of accomplishments in terms of state, high school basketball. I think they were in the Guinness Book of World Records for the most basketball games won in a row. Selma High School. At one point, I think it got beaten. But anyway, he was a very outgoing guy, and as a result, having 4 sisters, you can imagine a lot of guys coming over. So
yeah,
there was high traffic,
Little Al,
high traffic, high party type atmosphere, and my dad he liked to gamble, and so when he graduated, retired from veterinary school or from his veterinary practice, I should say, he ended up starting his own bookie service. Because he saw that it was more financially better for him than going to Vegas all the time and blowing a bunch of cash.
Okay, let me back up here. Yeah. Let me just kind of walk through this for a second.
Yeah.
Veterinarian, which is a lot of schooling. There's a lot that goes involved in that.
A brilliant guy, great,
smart.
Great,
that's a big job right there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Also got Little Al's over here.
Mm-hmm.
Goes from that to bookieing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How old were you at that time when he went into that business?
I'm gonna say 12.
12 years
15,
old. Is that where you made your first bet? No, I'm just kidding.
Wasn't long after.
Wasn't long after. Okay. Well, good. So he's going into that. Right. You're getting out of. So you go from Mississippi to where? Where do you end up after Mississippi? You going to school?
Well, fortunately, my mom was not going to let me follow in the dad's footsteps.
Okay.
And he
not being a bookie.
Yeah, and so I ended up enrolling out at. Ultimately, took me a while to get serious about school. I'll say that I was a 10-year guy, I think, or even longer when it came right down to college. But went to Southern Miss and graduated from Southern Miss in 95.
95.
Yep. And met my closest friend in the world while I was going to school, named Paul McCarthy. And Paul was the...
At first I thought you said Paul McCartney. I'm sure you've gotten that before. Oh, good, you're hanging out with Paul McCartney.
He's like, one letter and $1 billion.
Sure, he's never heard that before.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, he let me come in as I was studying computer science and do some interning, and he learned really quickly that I needed to finish school before I was going to be of any value to him, and so I did, and then I went straight to work for him in New Orleans.
In New Orleans. So that's where you went from Mississippi straight into New Orleans, working for Paul
McCarthy. Yep. Smart Dog Company. Eventually became Smart Dog was the name of the company.
Okay.
Yep.
And this is because what I'm trying to get us to is, how did you get here? And you've been at Bannockburn for how many years?
I've been at Bannockburn since 2006.
Okay, so about 14 or so years, and you're pretty plugged into here. I actually taught your kids, or a couple of them, and so it's really neat. So we go back a little bit, and I remember the story of hearing Alex tell me a little bit how they had come, or you had come from New Orleans, and so let's walk us through that a little bit. You're in New Orleans. You're like, hey, this is the job. This is where I'm going. Probably thinking I'm gonna be here forever, and then what happened?
Well, I started in New Orleans in '95, and then I moved to Chicago.
Okay.
To open up a satellite office there, and Kim, my wife, moved. I met her in New Orleans. She was from there, and she ended up moving up. We got married and had Alex in Chicago, and then I got that office running and doing really well, and they asked me to do the same thing in Atlanta. And I was happy to get out of the cold. Kim was absolutely happy.
Oh, yeah.
And so we get to Atlanta, and we do the same thing there, and that's where we have Abby and Ashlyn. And then things kind of came crumbling down a little bit with IT and after the .com and the Y2K stuff.
About 2000.
And so the company kind of consolidated, and I moved back to New Orleans and with Kim and the kids. And my wife was in hog heaven, because now we were on a cul-de-sac there was 12 houses.
Okay.
There was 5 of them were her family, and we were one of those houses. And,
all right.
So that was moving along really well, and along that time came Scott Eloquin.
Okay, we all know Scott.
Yep,
everybody here, we all pretty much know who Scott is, yeah?
Yep, and so Scott came in, and Scott was there and hired by Paul to turn the company around, and it needed some turning around, and he did an outstanding job of doing that. In that process, he kind of informed me that, Al, you're kind of I'll call you a running quarterback, and we need to transform the sales leadership over to a passing quarterback. And I said, well, Scott, nobody's ever asked me to pass, so give me a shot. And he did. Okay. And but I was coming in really early in the mornings, and to try to catch up and learn, this solution-based selling model. And it was definitely more sophisticated than the type of selling I was doing. And I remember during that time I was going to a Methodist church there in Gretna on the West Bank, and I was putting in my $40 into the plate every week, which was dramatically below what I should have been based on what I was making. And but I remember one Sunday I couldn't go to church, and I don't remember why, but I remember saying, God, show me where you want me to give this $40, and I remember a flash in my head coming into the picture of me going into work through the rear entrance, as I always did, when it was still dark, because I had to get there early. I had to beat Scott in. Yeah. And so that was what I saw. And then the next morning I come into work, and there's this. I remember that vision kind of popping back in my head, and I see this homeless guy coming towards me, and I said, "Okay, God, I guess this is it." And so I say, "Hey, sir, I think God wants me to give you this $40." And he says, "Wow, that's really nice of you." And he said, "Would you mind if we prayed?" And I'm thinking, "Sure, I'll pray over you. I'm the religious guy, And he grabs my hand and leads me in prayer like Billy Graham. I mean,
he prays.
Oh man.
Okay.
He just chills.
Wow.
Yeah. All the way top to bottom, and it just freaked me out. And but it was a good thing. And then he finished, and he said thank you, and he walked away.
Wow.
And it was the most amazing experience. I'll never forget it. And I came back, and within a week I said, Kim, it's time for us to start tithing. And I remember Kim, she's a practical person. She's like, where are we getting this 10%? Where are we going to get this? I don't see it in any of the savings, that we have. Let's just try it for 3 months. Let's just try it. Let's see where it takes us. Yeah. She said, okay. And so we started, and a month later, Katrina hit. Wow. Yeah. And, and about a month later, we also closed my first business brokering deal. I sell healthcare businesses for a living, and I was just getting started with it then. And I got a $60,000 commission, And then with Katrina, we ended up having to move back to Meridian, Mississippi, because we couldn't come home for 2 months. Had to enroll our kids in school in Meridian, Mississippi. They embraced us there. I lived back there for a while with the whole family. We had, I remember the insurance guys calling me as I'm coming back to the house from Mississippi after 2 months, and he said, well, based on what I'm hearing about the flooding and where your zip code is, I'm ready to go ahead and settle in full your claim of $400,000 because I think your house is completely flooded. And I'm like, I don't think it is. I know people that are there. I'm not taking the money because I don't think I'm just going to have to give it back. So anyway, we go down there and realize it's I got damage. I got a little bit of damage, and the insurance company ended up giving me $20,000 of money, and after I ended up paying about $5,000 to get it fixed because my brother-in-law built all of our houses. He was a contractor, and
so it's all kind of working out a little bit for you.
Everything's just kind of falling together. And
let's go back a little bit, because I want to kind of walk through this a little bit, where kind of God is doing something in your world, right? I mean, God is starting to really move by you praying and saying, God, what do you want me to give this money? A homeless man shows up, and you're just like, well, okay, you felt that spirit say, that's it. Yeah. You hand this money to this man, just say, I'm going to give it to you, not expecting anything but maybe a thank you and walk away. And this man prays. Yeah. Not you pray for him. He prays with you and probably for you in this moment. Awesome. Do you think, and you could go back and look at this a little bit, do you feel like, man, God was really showing you something in that moment? Well, especially when you say, hey, let's start tithing.
There's a connection to the story. It goes, and you'll see just how this kind of all comes together. So shortly thereafter, Scott comes to me and says, Al, you're doing great, and you're a passing quarterback, and I'll never underestimate you again. But I really would like you to move to Austin.
Austin, Texas.
Yes. So he was from here.
All right.
And quite frankly, most of the customers that could afford Oracle, which is the products that we were implementing. I was also VP of sales for that Smart Dog company, and so we ended up going to. He said you don't have to move, but if you really want to run sales, you really need to. Okay. And so he gave me the option, but I felt like it was an obvious choice, and we moved here. But I will tell you, that was pulling teeth, because my wife was not happy with me.
She was plugged in. She liked where she was, and you literally had to go to her and say, we're moving to Texas.
Yeah, I actually picked the house out without her.
Oh, wow, that's brave. And you've been married how many years?
Well, now 22.
22 years.
22, yes.
How many years have you been married when you were picking out houses over here?
Yeah. So that was 2000. Probably late 2005, early 2006. So 14 years ago.
14 years.
So we're 8 years in.
8 years in, and you're like, I'm just going to pick a house without my wife knowing. That is a brave thing, Al Veach.
Yeah, she was not happy. But I remember, I was dealing with a lot of, stress. But, I had mentors in my life. And that was the cool thing that I had during that time, is because that's when I really started to gravitate. I felt like God was a choice between, do I want to be a godly man or do I want to be a successful man? I always felt that way. I don't know why. And then, watching and my brother-in-law, Robert Wolf, the guy I was talking about that built all the houses, my best friend, Paul McCarthy, and Scott Eloquent himself, they were mentors to me. And what I saw is they were the best at their craft. They were the best there was at it, and they loved the Lord. And it
makes a difference, right?
Yeah, it showed me. It showed me that, there was an opportunity for me to have everything, be a good guy and honor God and go out and make the best. And now I know, obviously, that you can't really be the best unless you're in tune with your Creator. So anyway, I had that guidance, but I remember praying over this, and I talking to those guys, and they encouraged me, hey, you're doing the right thing. You're doing what's best for your family. I know your family may not see it right now. All the cousins get separated, and the wife gets separated from mom and dad. And I just went to God with it. I said, God, we're about to go on this trip to Austin, and I need you to shut the door or open it very clearly for me, please, so that I'm okay. I'll stay here, and I'll get another job if I need to. I mean, whatever I need to do. So we go, And I'll be as brief as I can. But we get over to Austin, and I remember the first thing we did was wanted to find a place to eat. And we're stopping a parking lot, and I asked this guy, where's a place to eat? And he says, well, there's a place here, there's a place here, there's a place here. I tell you what, I'm going over here, follow me.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, okay, I don't know if I want to follow people. I'm from New Orleans. So that's kind of
we don't follow people in New Orleans. Hey, follow me over here. We're gonna go through this alley.
So we do it, and we go to Serrano's. I remember, and we have this great waiter, and he's just super nice, and all the kids are starting to perk up and everything. And then we get ready to leave, and I said, okay, can you tell me how to get up to the Arboretum? We were staying in an extended stay up there, and I said, can you show me how to get there? Tell me how to get there. And he says, yeah, no problem. Leaves all his tables, walks all the way outside, and he's giving me directions and all this. And I'm like, man, this is amazing. These people are so nice in Austin.
People in Texas.
Yeah. And so he's pointing up to the Mopac and showing me, get on this and go blah, 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 and give me all that. And so we walk to our car. We're about to get in the car. This car comes pulling up beside us and said, I heard this guy giving you directions to Arboretum. We're heading in that direction. Can we lead you there? And I'm like, what
you got
is
people
going
asking
on?
you to follow them all over the place here in Austin. Okay.
So we'd go, and that's great. And then we come, I have to go to work the next day, and Kim, still kids sad, moping.
Okay.
They go look at the house site, and they're checking it out. Kim gets brave and says, I'm going to go knock on somebody's door. I'm just going to go see who I can meet.
Hold on. I have to stop here a second. Yeah. You're going to Serrano's. You're meeting an amazing waiter. He's the guy's going out of his way to tell you how to get somewhere. You got a car pulling up saying, "Hey, listen, we're going that way. Follow us." A guy take. You see all these pieces starting to connect.
Starting to feel it.
Now you're going off to work. Your wife goes over, looks at the house, and says, I think I'll just go meet the neighbors.
Yep.
That is fantastic.
So she goes over and meets this lady named Lisa Jeffis, just a kind-hearted soul.
Yeah.
And Lisa says, hey, why don't y'all come in? And we go to the backyard, and she's got one of these pools that's like Disney World.
Oh,
it's
wow.
like, bridges and
lazy
waterfalls
river,
and lazy, all that stuff, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is heaven. And so she's got a boy named Colby, and Alex was going to be named Colby. And we changed it to Alex at the last minute.
Okay.
His due date was on Alex's. His birthday was on Alex's due date.
Gotcha. Yeah.
They walk up in his room, and he's got a mural of Star Wars. Alex was a freak about Star Wars, and then they've got this other little daughter, Chrissy, that just totally latches in with Abby and Ashlyn.
So everything's starting to fit in.
It's just so perfect, and they stay there the whole day. They eat pizza. They swim the whole day.
Yeah.
She gives them the combination to the gate to get back there. Says, if I'm out of town, you guys just come over swimming anytime you want. This is my house is your house. Unbelievable. And then that night we go and Scott says, I'm having a few people over. Why don't you come visit? And we go over to Scott's house, and he's got all the people from Bannockburn.
Okay, here we go.
And everybody's saying is so nice to my kids, and everybody's saying yes sir and yes ma'am, and they're just so impressive, and I'm just like, wow, I want my kids to be like this. The youth just really drew us into this church.
Wow.
It was so powerful. I remember they used to sit right in the center. And I'm glad that we're kind of starting to do some of those things, because putting them at the center is just so powerful.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so anyway, that's how we ended up, I came through that whole thing, and I said, okay, God, thank you for the message loud and clear.
Wow.
So I told you this story has an ending, and I'll bring it home here.
That's right. Here we go.
So we come to the Singing Christmas Tree.
All right.
Everybody comes to the Singing Christmas Tree at Bannockburn, especially back then.
It was
crazy. The talent was amazing, and we're sitting there. I can't remember where I was sitting. I think I was sitting over here somewhere, but we're sitting there just enjoying how awesome the performance was. And a lady that I know, a young girl then, probably young lady now, named Margaret Henselman. That there was this whole Henselman family that were a very large family that used to attend here. She turns around. She doesn't know me from Adam, because I just started going to school here, church here. And she turns around and she says, God wants me to give you this $40.
Wow.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Just turns around, looks you in the face, and says, God wants to give you $40.
She hands me the $40 and she walks off.
Al, that's wild.
Yeah.
And God is just, I'm sure at that moment you had to be, I don't want to put words in your mouth. In that moment, what went through you?
I hate to be a killjoy, but what went through me was, I don't need this $40. This lady has totally missed the mark. I totally didn't see it. I didn't even see it. It wasn't until months later, maybe even a year later, that it came to me.
Oh, so in that moment you weren't even thinking of that time?
I literally went to Ryan Rush, who was the pastor at the time, and said, man, somebody gave me this $40. I don't need this $40, you know?
Yeah.
And I gave it, I think, to the church, put it in the offering for the... And it wasn't until later that I realized that God was bringing that whole thing full circle, just telling me, look, man, you can never outgive me. I've always got your back.
Do you feel like that's the message here of that whole story, which is an incredible story of how, you know, God just kind of brought you here and stuff, but in that full circle moment there where this woman gives you $40, not thinking about it, but then now in this moment in your life, are you saying that's it? Is that the message? If you were to tell, you know, those who are watching right now, what is the message would you say about that? How do you sum that up for me?
I think the way you sum it up is, you know, God understands that we don't have the ability, if this is our comfort zone, to step to here. I think what God is asking is just take baby steps towards me and and make those little small steps out of your comfort zone. And I will show you that I'm going to hold you. I'm going to pick you. He held me from the moment I started tithing to the moment he brought me here. 6 months after we've been here, Kim said, if you move to New Orleans, you're moving alone. She was happy here.
Yeah.
And my family loves it here. They're thriving here.
Would you tie this into obedience?
Oh,
I mean, that's what I see. I'm hearing this story. This is what I'm thinking is this whole obedience. God said, give that $40 and you did. God said, tithe and you did. God said and you did, and look at what's happening.
Well, it's funny because I've always, you know, for the longest time early in my faith, you know, I've always kind of categorized myself as, you know, one of God's bad kids. You know, and where it's taken me is a hunger to show him that I can honor him. A hunger to want people to see what I needed to see in other obedient people to be able to make that move. And that's literally where I am in my faith walk right now. Is literally I'm in the process of me and my family doing a Bible study at home on obedience, and because I want the blessing of it. I don't just want to do it because it's the right thing. I know on the other side of it is a huge blessing, because when you see all of the great people in the Bible talk about obedience, they celebrate it. They celebrate the gift that comes from it. So,
and it feels so good, right?
Yeah.
It feels good just to say, I'm being obedient to what God's called me to do. Right. You said something earlier, and we'll kind of close with this. You made it was both when we're talking off camera. You said looking at God in the rearview mirror, like God's in the rearview mirror, you know. And I think looking at this story and seeing how you can look in that rearview mirror from all the way back, maybe in Meridian, Mississippi, and see how God is kind of continuing moving in your life. And here's what's so great about there's so much more. I mean, there's so much more. And I thank you for sharing your story today. Thank you for sitting on the couch. Thank you for hanging out with me. We just thank you for being a part of our thing. And you want to add something?
Yeah, I want to add one thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
He doesn't have to stay in the rearview mirror. And that's the part of obedience that I think I would challenge. I'm challenging myself, and I would challenge all you guys as well. As, you know, every step of obedience pulls him closer to where ultimately you feel him right here.
You feel him not in the rearview mirror, but right here with you walking.
That's where I want it, you know.
Powerful word. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. Everybody, Al Veach, thank you for watching Bannockburn Stories, and we'll see you next time.